Show the gut to the side. Look at that thing, man. Like, now that's how you start. Dude, that thing is so long. That's what we're looking for.
That thing.
That, to me, looks like a PB. What do you think? That's going over 5.
No, it's not 5, but holy crap.
Dude. Damn right. That's a 4. Dude. 4 pounder right off the bat. Here we go. Oh my god, dude. Dude. Look at that. I have big hands. That thing's huge. Girthy. That's triple C thick.
Calling them today, boys.
All right, we're live. How's it going, everybody? What else we got here in the chat? We already saw Ryan, Cam, Hunter, Chris Peckham, Jim B, Little Tommy, and King Bates. How's everybody doing this fine Wednesday evening? What is... Just get the most random texts. All right, we got a lot to discuss tonight. First and foremost, for those that are here, thank you. Greatly appreciated as always. Second, we do not have another guest tonight. It's just going to be Sheron for us. Our other buddy there, Tom. Well, I don't want to go into too much details because it's his own private life, but something came up with work. He has pretty much one of the only jobs out there where, like, if they call you in,
You better be there.
you better be there. So, unfortunately, something came up extremely last minute for him. So, we at least, you know what? No joke, though. We are very fortunate we have Sheron on because he can cover everything from both ends of the spectrum. So, you're not going to miss anything. We'll be able to cover everything for shallow water, largemouth, deep water, smallmouth, and everything in between for both. So, we got a lot to discuss there. But before we get into it, we're going to do the usual stuff, you know, go through the weekend fishing report and then take it from there. And I'm not going to wait the usual couple minutes like I do because we got going about a minute late. So, we're going to roll right into it. After everything else, so the new first and foremost. For those that are willing to donate by any means, please do so. We greatly appreciate it. One of 3 ways you can do it. Down in the video description below, there are links to both our PayPal and Venmo. Or if you're set up to do it right here through YouTube in the Super Chat, by all means, go for it. We greatly appreciate it. I still haven't updated the donation tracker, but I can tell you that we're at $200 from the last few streams all compiled together. So for those that have donated, we thank you very, very much. And just a reminder what we're doing with that, where I've got this giant TV behind the camera that we look into when we're talking to you guys, and it's not ideal for doing this. What I'm going to do is replace it with 2 like 32-inch like proper computer monitors. And they're probably going to be like absolute bargain bin deals, but that's okay. They don't need to be high-end monitors. They just need to be actual proper computer monitors so that the resolution, formatting, everything is like the way it needs to be, and then I can manage multiple tasks simultaneously while doing the stream. They can flank either side of the camera. Life will be good. So that's the plan for that. For those that are watching, if you haven't done it yet, please drop a like on the stream. Always appreciate the help. And turn post notifications on for anything that you follow us on. Case in point, like today, if you were following us on Instagram and you had notifications turned on for both our posts and our stories, you would still know we were doing the stream. Albeit very, very late in the night, because for some reason Instagram is down all day today. By app, I probably could have done it on my computer if I were home, but I couldn't post anything. I literally, every time I tried since 8 a.m. this morning, it was down. I couldn't do anything. So I posted a story like half an hour, 45 minutes ago. No, half an hour ago. It's like literally as you walked in. Yeah. So that's where the notifications help, depending on which way you have it set up and where you're following us. You won't miss anything. But that's it for all the front end stuff. Without further ado, let's dive into at least introductions. So again, we are joined here by our good buddy, Sheron. He was on with us before. I'm trying to think about how long ago that was. It was almost a year ago. sometime
Yeah.
last summer in the fall.
I think it was early, like late winter. I think it might have been late winter.
It was
I
late
think
winter
still-
because I think we were doing ice out fishing with him.
Yeah. I think
That feels like a year ago.
so. Yeah.
Because
pretty
we've been
much.
fishing since
Yeah.
February.
I know. It takes like 14 months. You know, it's funny when you fish during the cold water months now, you kind of become disattached with the actual seasons. You're like, man, when did I actually stop fishing? You know what I mean?
We didn't.
Oh yeah.
Exactly. You didn't.
Because if we weren't on the boat, I was out ice fishing.
I didn't
Yeah.
do that. I usually take like a 2-week hiatus just so I don't get too confused in the springtime because it'll throw you off a little bit. I mean, it really does. You know what I mean? You kind of hold on to old patterns as you know spring patterns are starting to emerge. So
Truth.
take a little break.
Yep.
Nah.
But yeah, anyway, go ahead and introduce yourself, buddy. I know quite a few people here will probably remember you from the last stream, but we do definitely have some new viewers since then. So by all means, introduce yourself. Have at it.
All right, my name is Sheron K. Brown, hence SKB Fishing. Been fishing for a hella long time, tournament fishing for about 20 plus years. Right now, Bassmaster Open Pro right now, trying to qualify for Elite Series, and I'm all things fishing. Father, familyhood, and fishing is what I do, and I'm here to talk about some forward-facing sonar and anything else that you guys want to ask some questions about.
Guarantee there's going to be a lot of them too, because
Hopefully.
this is, oh yeah. No, there definitely will be. This is a very hot topic, whether it's just people that are interested in it and they're trying to get to that next level, who just trying to understand like how best to utilize it, or just that opinionated side of it, where some people think it's exactly what I think it is, just another tool in the toolbox, and other people think it's cheating. So I'm
Yeah.
sure we will probably hear from both sides of the aisle on that, which is perfectly fine. That's what we want to hear, as long as we all keep it constructive. All right, man. Thank you for introducing yourself. Let's do a quick weekend fishing report recap. Andrew, I'm going to turn it over to you, buddy.
So we fished with the Merrimack Valley Bass Club.
Merrimack Valley Bass Anglers.
Bass Anglers.
MVBA, baby.
Oh, yeah, VBA, not VBC. Okay, whatever. Anyway, bunch of dudes from Merrimack Valley get together and do a tournament. We were there. Where were we?
Pawtuckaway.
Pawtuckaway. That place can have some big fish in there. Last year we did it. There was like 6 or 7 4 plus caught out of there.
Yep.
We're fortunate enough to. I think we got 3rd or 4th.
We
out of
got
that
4th in that one.
And then this year, we got 2nd. We were really hoping that we get a lot, like there'd be a lot of big fish that day, but I think there was only 2 over 5 caught.
No, this past weekend?
Yeah.
3.
3.
Because we
Wow.
had lunker, and then they're at 5.38, and then they reweighed again because the scale died. So they reweighed.
Oh, yeah,
I forget.
that's right, that's
we were
right.
5 pounds, 6 ounces. And then they had 2 right behind us at 5 pounds, 4 ounces. So then they had to bring them all back because they had to weigh the tiebreaker fish.
Oh, I thought they just had to reweigh those
No,
2.
they reweighed ours just in case
Oh,
because
okay,
they went
cool.
from the nice table mounted scale to the handheld because the
Oh,
table one
yeah,
died.
yeah.
So they were just double checking the numbers to make sure everything was kosher.
Well, we threw everything we had.
The kitchen sink.
Fished from anywhere from, I'd say, probably 20, 25 feet all the way up to the shore. And we started off deep, really didn't pan out. Well, you got your first one deep on a chatterbait.
That was awesome.
And then after that, we didn't get another deep bite pretty much all day, I don't think.
No, we grinded that first spot for like 2 hours because we saw plenty of fish. We were marking bait fish, a variety of sizes. We were marking what we were absolutely positive was bass for a variety of sizes and depths. We had some blimps coming through that were pinned to the bottom. And, usually you can get a false positive with that. You get a couple of bait fish like perch or something. They're stacked together and you're like, oh, it's a big fish. And as soon as you drop it, 3 lines separate. And you're like, oh, son of a bitch.
Yeah, these were
Kibbies.
bass. They were absolutely 100% bass.
Oh, yeah. And yeah, I mean, pinned to the bottom at 25 feet. We even saw some out in like 30, 35 when we were moving spots, all the way up to the surface. Anyway, but yeah, so we saw them everywhere. And we tried that for 2 hours because we saw the size potential out there, but I didn't bring the whole offering that I usually do because I'm trying to be a little bit more condensed in what I bring in the boat. And I feel like that only bit us in the ass for one very specific technique, but it's not because I was trying to go light on the boat. It's because I just didn't want to bring those techniques, which was stupid. It's a tournament.
Yeah.
Pack all that
It is
stuff.
what it is.
Sometimes you got to make a decision,
Right.
That's the, I mean, you make, the more decisions you make, the better off you are. But at the same time, you have to keep those decisions within a spectrum, because I do that too. There's a way you want to fish and there's a way you have to fish. And sometimes there's a way you need to learn how to fish. So how you balance that is how you balance that. But I get exactly what you're trying to do because I do it often too.
Right.
Always hindsight's 50-50. There's always another way you can catch fish after the tournament. So don't beat yourself up.
No, I still feel good about the second. Nope. Oh, sorry. So we left the first spot. Continue.
Well, that's the first spot. Where did we go to the second spot?
Second, so we the whole game plan for the day was start out the deep spot, and if it didn't pan out, we're gonna go up wicked shallow.
I think we just hit the shallow spot second.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we went right for it.
Straight for the super shallow. Like this whole area was like 3 to 4 feet.
Yep.
And he got into one, and then I think I got into one, and then he got the next one, which was that big 5-pounder. And we called a few times. We ended up having 13.58 pounds for 4 fish, which is good. I was still thinking that there was going to be a few dudes out there that got into the 6-pound class, but actually the one dude that caught this one dude caught 2 over 6, but he wasn't even in the tournament. He was just there hanging out.
Yeah.
He was just there fishing, and he shows up and he had 2 over 6. Everyone's like, "What the fuck?"
Wow. He didn't have the same pressure, right? He was just chilling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a hot day. It was a hot, long day.
It
Drank
was.
a lot
Man,
of
it was
water.
real hot out.
Ran a lot of water, and we just worked our asses off to put a bag together, and we did. Ended up coming out in second, so
Good job.
worked.
Felt good to get the lunker this time after losing on the tiebreaker last year because I had, when we weighed it, when I caught it, and that was actually even still pretty late in the day, but my scale had it at 5 pounds 1 ounce, and then we weighed in at the end of the day, it was 4.98, I think.
And they got beat by 0.01.
Is that no last
Or
year?
0.1. Yeah, it was last year. Same.
No, last year we got beat by like a quarter pound because we
No,
tied
I'm saying lunker.
for like yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Lunker tied. Oh, lunker tied.
Yeah, last year
Yeah.
our lunker tied with Tiago. Was it Tiago or Barry that caught it? That doesn't matter. It was a team of Tiago and Barry, and then we brought out because you had a 4.5, I think, was the other big fish we had, and they had a 4 3/4.
Yep.
Wow.
So we lost
Oh,
out
yeah,
on lunker.
true. Okay.
Still 2 good fish. You kind of can't be upset about that at all.
No.
5.5.
Your lunker was 5.5. Yeah, this year. Yeah, I remember that. 5.5. Well, you told me 5.38 on the real scale.
Whatever. We got second.
Yeah,
It was a hot freaking day.
it was. And I forget. I'm sorry because I was typing
Most
in
of the people
chat.
stayed too.
Yeah, I think only 2 guys left early.
Yeah, which was good. Out
Yeah.
of 15 boats, I think only 2 boats left.
It's a good
Take
turnout.
that. Yeah. I forget. Did you tell him what exactly we did to win and with what?
Oh, Jesus.
I was typing away, so I kind of zoned
If
out.
Jerry's
I
listening,
apologize.
he's going to kill me.
He didn't.
We already told him.
We smoked him on Sankos. Smoked him. I think we got, probably around 25 fish.
Yeah.
98% of them were on Sankos.
Yeah, because we both got one on a jackhammer, and then I got 2 on the fluke, and literally all the rest came on a Senko.
Mm-hmm.
That's how she goes some days.
Yep.
I don't like throwing a Senko when I'm out having fun, unless I'm getting my teeth absolutely kicked in. Then I'll go to it. But it's not something that I go out there intending I just want to fling this thing. That's always pretty much what Sunday was, right? Bluebird skies, dead calm for the most part of the day, and just brutally hot. Senko has saved my butt more times than not doing that. It's just it really is perfect for those conditions, and it works well. And we went through everything, and even during that first 2 hours when we were fishing deeper water, I kept throwing that, and they weren't having it out there. And then first patch of grass we rolled up to, we worked that whole flat with a variety of moving baits, chatterbait, the fluke, which I did catch with Smalley on. That I,
Oh, my God.
dude, we only had 1 fish in the boat, and it was like a 2.5 pound smallmouth. Totally forgot it was in a tournament. Hooked it, flipped into the boat, it hit the deck, hook came out, and it was started dancing across the deck. I tried putting a foot on it, and he just squirmed out and jumped back in the lake. And I looked at him and was like, "What? Why did I do that?"
I don't know.
It's good fish. Quality
Yeah.
fish.
And honestly, if my weight guesstimation is correct, that would have kept for the whole day, and it would have put us toe to toe with David for first place there.
Ooh.
It would have been real close.
That's how she goes.
And I broke off twice.
Yeah, first 2 bites on the shallows. No, first spot and second spot.
Yep. Ugh.
We got dialed in after that. After all the mayhem. We shook off the rust of not doing a tournament yet this year, and we got everything under control. We didn't have any other mishaps the rest of the day. Most importantly, though, for water temp, we saw out in the main lake about 76 to 78 degrees. And then as soon as we got into the shallows, yeah, it was 76 to 77 out over deeper water. When we got shallow, it went to like 78 immediately. And we saw as high as 82 when we were fishing up like the Fundy area, where it's like 3 feet of water or less. So take that for what you guys can do with it, and hopefully you find that helpful. But that's from our side of things. Sheron, you fished this weekend. What'd you find and how'd you do?
It's kind of tough fishing. It was hot, obviously hot everywhere. I was a fill-in for a team tournament, and we had a tournament on the Bellows Falls section of the Connecticut River system, which is generally a pretty good fishery. The challenge over there often was 2 challenges you got to deal with this time of year when you're fishing in New Hampshire. One is the fact that it's a 4 fish limit. So when you fish with team partners, you're trying to get 2 good fish each, but you got to get 4 better sized fish, to generally finish in the money. So it kind of adjusts your approach, And there was some rains, I think maybe the day before, so the water was kind of getting muddy. Water levels were pretty stable. I didn't see much of a water line. You can always see some kind of water line if you're just looking to see how the water rises and falls. Just get to an area where it's kind of calm. Just look at rocks or trees, and you'll see if there's a water line. If you see the water line, then the water's falling. In this case, I saw about 2-inch water line, so the water was falling too. But they weren't drawing any current. And generally, that makes fishing a little bit more tougher on a river when they're not drawing any water. But at the same time, you're not going to use your trolling motor as hard because there's no current. You don't have to fight the current, so you can kind of maneuver around a little bit. Fishing overall was kind of tough. We had some motor issues to start the morning, and that kind of killed the top water bite. And if you've been following me at all, I've been trying to catch some fish on top water, and I was really looking forward to getting some bites on a river system early in the morning, but that really didn't happen. So we kind of ended up fishing for bites, which is a little bit off too, like I said, 4 fish, trying to get 4 big bites, but it just wasn't panning out that way. And got a couple of fish on plastics, and I got a good one on a jig, and then my partner missed another one and brought 3 fish to the table, not 4. So it was kind of tough fishing all around, but I kind of wanted to get a good primer, just get my feet wet, because I'm getting ready to do some big time fishing up on Lake Oneida, but conditions overall, water temperature was like 71 to 74, which is kind of warm for the river, hard post spawn. There's a lot of fry in the water. In this case, there's a lot of carp fry in the water, like billions of them. So the fish are kind of eating that stuff. And I didn't see much surface activity, which kind of makes sense in the stretch we were at, because it was kind of muddy there. But I know some guys caught some good top water fish up north in the skinnier water for the smallmouth. And the top water bite was pretty consistent up there because guys actually had enough bites where they had to adjust their baits to get some bites. And I hated hearing that dock talk at the end of the day, but nevertheless, the top water bite is on at the river if you want to, target largemouth or smallmouth. Largemouth mostly in the morning, and shade lines so you get some largemouth on top water. But if you get in the skinny parts of the river, you can basically fan cast with multitude of different top waters and produce some fish. So those are the current conditions right now in the Connecticut River system, just from my experience from last weekend.
Nice. So the only other question I have, were they pulling current pretty well, or was it kind of slack? Sorry, I missed it.
Yeah, it was slack. It was completely slack. I look for that too. Sometimes during the day they'll draw a little bit of water, but overall, no, there wasn't much current at all.
They're probably not going to be pulling much for a while now until we start getting some serious rain.
Yep, this time of year the water starts to get low, gets stagnant. You know what I mean? It's usually at its lowest and clearest like in August, but you can start seeing that once July hits. You know what I mean? It gets kind of tough because they aren't pulling much water unless there are heavy rains coming down. Yeah. And then just depends on what section you're at. They'll pull water.
Yep.
Yeah, if you're above the dam or below it.
Right.
Yep.
It's actually funny thinking about the current water levels, and we're like quickly marching towards another drought here. I wouldn't be surprised if we're already in a really minor drought in New England. We just really haven't had any rain this spring. After work, I went down the end of the street. Remember that little pond in the roundabout when I used to work down at the other business end of the road?
Yep.
I went down there after work. I had my monk with me. I was like, screw it. I'm going to go out and fish for just 5 minutes and just like woo-saw after the end of the day because I got myself a little worked up again, and just have fun for a few minutes. Dude, that water was down like 2 feet.
Oh, Jesus.
There was no water coming in through one culvert, and it was definitely not going out the other.
I mean, this pond is literally the size of maybe this house.
Yeah, it's small. It's not even supposed to be a pond.
There's bass in it, though.
Yeah.
I've caught bass out of it. It's teeny tiny.
I know there was a 5 to 6 pound class bass in there because I may or may not know a person that put it there. It's like, I mean, it's pretty deep. It's like 12 feet deep in the middle in this one pocket, but otherwise it's all like 6 feet deep or deep or yeah.
That's not bad.
No,
There's good grass.
It's good. Good grass. There's good overhangs because it's all pretty steep all the way around it, and just the road goes around it. It's all businesses around the outside, and then there's a stream that
It's almost invisible if you don't
feeds
even know it's there.
yeah. And it was actually nice because when I worked at the business right next to it several years ago, we got a new plant manager, and like all the front offices have windows facing the pond, and he was like, you know, if we just kind of clean this up, it'd be nice to have this to look out. So he did, and instead of our lawn crew just doing our properties, he paid them to clean everything up around it too, and it was nice to be able to go out and walk around and have like a body of water there. Anyway, I digress. But yeah, dude, even that place was down 2 feet.
That's rough.
Yeah, it's gonna be kind of widespread. You know, it's funny because last year we got tremendous amounts of rain. You know, right up into the fall, and this year now it's dry. You know, rains, not much rains at all. You know,
It's evening out.
yeah, it always does, right? You know, nature always catches up, and it's weird how it works out like that.
Yes, it does. Makes me glad I did not put the usual money into my lawn that I usually do every spring, because it is
We need
dead right
rain in
now.
California. That's
Tell
what
me
we
about
need
it.
rain.
I just put some mulch down a week ago, and just to make it look a little bit better. You know, but
Yeah.
the grass is like the whiskers of a 14-year-old kid. You know, just not much. You know what I mean?
Spot on. Oh, all right. Enough digressions. Let's jump into it. Everybody's been patiently waiting for us to cover a bunch of forward-facing sonar talk tonight. So, forward-facing sonar, live scope, active target, mega live. It's kind of all the same at the end of the day. You were talking about real-time, forward-facing, or downward-facing sonar. That's what we're going to try and break down tonight. Not just for your benefit, but for my benefit as well. For everybody that's in the chat watching this, as you're thinking of questions based on what the conversation is going over at the time, rifle them out. I'm going to pin them up as we go here. We're going to rely on Sheron's experience because I've only been out fishing with it 3 times now. And 2 of those 3 times was just like jumped in a buddy's boat for 10 minutes, played around with it, cool, got out. The other 3rd time was almost 2 full days on the St. Lawrence River and Lake Ontario last summer with TJ at Smallmouthfreaks from Instagram. So minimal experience, but at least I understand how it all works to an extent. But the real applications is what I'm at least most curious about, and I hope you guys can learn something here from Sheron, who you've had it now for at least 2 years. I want to say 2.5 years?
Say I started with the Lawrence Live site, right? So that's 3 years old technology, maybe even 4 years old technology,
Yep.
But at the same time, you're still looking forward, you're still looking ahead, and you still see objects move back and forth. So I'm in two full seasons, and I used Garmin Panoptics in someone's boat, but I've been using Lawrence Active Target and haven't had any hands-on experience with Mega Live yet, But 2 full seasons, winter, spring, summer, fall.
Yep, and unless I'm completely mistaken, I believe that the primary difference between all 3 of those is cone angle and then overall, I guess, clarity as far as how good of a picture you can get. But I unless I'm mistaken, I'm pretty sure the biggest difference is that cone angle. So, effectively how much the transducer can actually see out at certain ranges. No different than other transducers, depending upon, what you set your frequency at and everything. But that's the gist of it. Unless I'm mistaken.
Yeah. That when you start comparing them, cone angle is a really good one to see, some differences in all 3 types of sonar. But just to back up a little bit, the first thing that you looked at is just the kind of components that come with the forward-facing sonar. So you have a transducer, your cables, then you have this black box, and the black box is, it's kind of the brains behind the images and the live display. And one major difference between the three competitors is Hummingbird didn't have the black box, so there was some skepticism as to how powerful that processor is going to be and how good that cone is going to be and how good those images are going to be. But anything is better than nothing, you know. So just the fact that you see something going across the screen is better than just seeing something sitting there and you're not sure what position of the boat is in, you know. So overall, cone angles is what you look at, and then you know just how good those processors are, and then just how they all set up, you know, dependencies like you have to look at battery power, how much power draw consumption you're getting, you know, and then from there it's just how easy it is of installation, and then you want to get into just independent free transducer type mounts, you know, like a corn sweep, like a cornfield crappie live sweep or the right height turret. But cone angle and processor, and then just how well it looks depend on the size of screen you have or some things if you want to differentiate them. You know, me, I looked at availability and cost, right? And you know, if it's not available, then I don't care what it costs, you can't get it, you know. And if you can't afford it, then it doesn't matter whether it's available or not, you can't get it. So I looked at availability and cost, and for me, it was Lowrance Active Target because I'd put my money down for the Hummingbird units too, waiting for Mega Live imaging. It just took a long time, and guys like me that might get a discount through team deals and stuff like that, we wait even longer to get our accessories, our devices, you know, our boxes, monitors, or whatever, because the companies are gonna ship out to the retailers first. So the highest dollars is the way it's gonna work. So with me, Lowrance was available. So I threw on an HDS Live unit. Ended up getting a Ghost trolling motor too. That's another thing is when you want to look into forward-facing sonar, the ideal way to go is to have everything in sync. You know, meaning you get you're gonna get a Mega Live imaging. You have a Helix, you know, unit, and then you may have a Fortrex trolling motor or Ultrex trolling motor. Then you get everything in sync and you can really maximize them. If not, then you kind of go piecemeal, and that's really been the trend the last couple of years. A lot of guys are having one of each unit on their boat so they can maximize those little subtle differences, and it's kind of working for them. And some folks, it's a little overkill.
Yep, I was spot on. That literally covers absolutely everything about what entails getting into something like this.
Yep.
And there's a lot to consider. And actually, one thing that you touched upon that I had forgotten about, but I know is always something that, you know, most guys when they get into it, it always comes back to that is screen size. Everything else I've seen, with the exception of live and 360, you can get away with pretty much any screen size and be just fine. Like I got by just fine with 2 7-inch screens on my boat for years, even with side imaging. With side imaging, yeah, it would have been nice to have something bigger, but it worked. And then with 360, I knew 7 was going to be too small. Like 9-inch was really the minimum that I felt I needed to get the most out of it to be effective with it. Now, live scope, everybody I've talked to has said 9-inch is really beyond your minimum. 10-inch is pretty much what you want your minimum to be, and anything bigger that you can afford, go as big as you can. How much do you agree with that?
I don't agree, right? So we back up a little bit, right? So more pixels is better, right? The larger the screen is always good. And watching a movie at the movies is better than watching it, you know, on your laptop. You know, watching it on a 60-inch TV is better than watching on your laptop. Watching your laptop is better than watching on your phone. But your iPhone has a really tremendous good processor, and you can maximize your screen. So you can watch a movie on your iPhone if you're on an airplane, and you're fine, right? So it all depends on what you can actually see, what you can discern. And the ultimate goal, right, is to be able to see, you know, fish's behavior, if there's fish in the area, and see how fish relate to your bait. So once you train your eyes, you know, size really doesn't matter because you're still getting all that information. And again, more is always better, but just learning the technology will help you even more. And case in point, I started with a 7-inch screen, and I sold it to a friend, you know, and then I went to a 9-inch screen, and when I saw on a 12-inch screen, a 15-inch screen, how they split the screens up into 4, I'm like, you know, I can see, you know, that those fish over there. I can see the rock and cover. You know, I can see the water column pretty good because my eyes are what I call educated eyes, meaning I've seen different technologies already, like live sight, you know, and Panoptics and scout mode and active target in scout mode. I also have a Mega 360, but I had the original 360 first. And although the images are much better in the Mega 360, I still saw 360 degrees around me. The rock wasn't as pretty and as detailed, but it didn't matter. The fact was that there was a rock there, and I could discern rock, cover, hard bottom. So when I got the Mega 360, it things were even better. And then when
Yep.
I got to the active target, I started out in forward facing, and I couldn't hit my target, and I didn't want to go through that learning curve right there because I'm like, man, this is the view is like this, and now I'm literally focusing all my focus on this view right here and just shutting out like 320 degrees just all around me. So I had tunnel vision, and I felt like I was missing all kinds of things. It was fun. I was watching the fish, watching my bait, but I felt like I was out of touch with what's going on around me because I was so dialed in. And then also, if the use case isn't right, like you're not around a lot of fish or fish react a lot, or you just don't have, a lot of deep water to really focus on that forward facing sonar, you miss out on a lot. You can go to a shallow water pond and again, you're looking like this, where in scout mode, you have such a broader view. So once I started playing with scout mode, I started using top water, and it was amazing. I could see the fish come up, hit my top water. That was pretty cool to me, just seeing that. And I had a problem with depth though. I couldn't tell if the fish were on the bottom or in the middle of the water column. So I would just see how they react to my top water bait. But I also was using it to look for cover. And face it, you find cover offshore, chances are it's going to hold some fish. So I started looking at it to find weed edges, going to lakes like, say Webster Lake or even Lake Quinsigamond or my home lake, Lake Shirley. Where's the grass at? And if you got a view like this, you're not going to see as much. But with that broader view, I could find those grass edges a lot better, and it just told me so much more, So with the forward-facing sonar in scout mode, and with the 360, I could see all around me, and then I could see if fish are moving back and forth to the cover, and that's kind of what I started really dialing into, just seeing if fish are around, not really how they're related to my bait, because I think my bait's going to work anyway. I've already caught fish with the bait already, so I'm not concerned to see how they're going to react to my bait. I just want to see how they're reacting to their environment, and then I can adjust my bait and presentations accordingly. So I use it to judge the behavior of the fish and learn more cover around me versus just seeing how fish are going to react to my bait in that small cone.
I got you. All right.
That's thunder.
Yeah, real quick, to completely go off topic for a brief second. If all of a sudden the stream shuts off, I just got an alert on my phone that we have severe thunderstorms rolling through us right now here in, where I live. So if all of a sudden everything just craps out,
Sorry.
apologize. I don't know what we'll do from there. I mean, I'll try and jump back on. If people are still hanging out, we'll do it. But
Wait 10 minutes. If we're not back, then we'll see you next week.
that's actually a great question. If all of a sudden we lose power, I think the stream is still technically going because I haven't ended the broadcast. I've just lost power to everything that's in the broadcast. We're going to find out if it happens.
I just checked my weather report too. Looks like I got a brief storm coming too, and I didn't put the boat in the shelter logic, so I hear a flash of thunder. I have to run real quick and put the
I say,
Yeah, go for it.
anytime, man, just jump right out and take care of the boat because you're going to get that thing out there for the tournament. So take care of it.
What I also want to touch on too is, don't get me wrong. Like I might sound like I'm against the forward-facing sonar cone view right here, but I'm actually not. I think the use case is really, really big, and just in this area here where we live at, there's not a lot of fish per acre, so you're not going to get the same effect that you would if you're fishing a larger lake like Lake Champlain, or 1,000 Islands. The place has, hundreds of thousands of fish, enough fish where you can really dial into that type of technology. So when you don't have as many fish, you tend to use that. You don't want to not use that technology. So it's better to use it to learn your area. You know what I mean? So where I'm heading up to now, I'm heading up to Lake Oneida for a Bassmaster Open event, and I'll be fishing offshore. So I'm gonna go back and forth with adjusting my cone. Right now, I'm debating if I want to put my transducer, my active target transducer, on a separate pole mount, or do I want to keep it on my trolling motor? Because just the way I'm using just to see what's going on, and then I use all my electronics all together. I don't focus on one particular thing. So, and this circles back to the size of the screen, and because I know what I'm looking at, like looking at this laptop right now, and I got you on the left side, and I got myself on the right side, and I can see everything I need to see. You know what I mean? So if you look at it from a forward-facing sonar perspective, once you adjust your eyes, what are you really trying to look at? Are you trying to just look at the rock, trying to look at the grass, trying to look at the fish, trying to look at the bait? That's just a lot, right? It's just a lot to take into consideration. So when you can really focus and have some questions that you're asking and use the forward-facing sonar to answer those questions, it works a lot better for you, because if not, you're just going to have your head down, and it's very, very distracting when you start seeing all kinds of fish, because one, you don't know what the fish are. You really have no clue. The first fish that tend to show themselves are like crappie, and they behave a certain way, they react a certain way. And then after that, you're not sure. It could be carp, it could be bass, it could be pickerel. So you really have to catch the fish to really see, or you really need to know your area, to know how many fish are in there, to know that the school of fish you're looking at is a target species you want. So you can get really distracted just by seeing fish moving around, so you really got to take it to the next level and ask yourself some questions, and then answer those questions using your sonar, and you'll get a lot more out of it.
Oh yeah. You got a question by any chance? I just remembered I have to go run out and unplug my boat because I got that wonky ass charger in there.
Oh yeah, go get it.
So have fun for a minute.
So
Be right back.
actually being able to see the fish, like if they're down deep and you're only using the forward-facing sonar, but you see them down in the bottom using 2D, can you back up and like point that forward-facing sonar down on them and actually see if like what they are, and actually be able to pick out if they're a bass? Unless you, or do you have to like, instead of like without catching them, bring them up off the bottom to see what they are? Is it that easy to be able to see?
It's that easy to see movement, right? And sometimes my lure can look like this big in the water. It's crazy, It all depends on how the fish, gets into that cone.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? If it's above the cone, below the cone, or even just the size of the fish. Sometimes things look really big, sometimes they look really small. So you don't always know. I've seen fish follow my lure that I thought were bass, and then I actually see them and they're bluegill and crappie, but at a certain point in time, they look pretty decent size,
Right.
And then I saw fish that I thought were bass, because they were big, and they ended up being crappie, So you really don't know until you really know your area, your habitat, and the species you're targeting. Everything kind of looks the same, and what you start to realize is they behave a little bit differently. The bass are kind of like the cool kids. They kind of just hang back and just watch things, where the other fish, other species are a lot more active. They're out in the open. So yes, I will back up and aim my forward-facing sonar at that particular fish, or where it's at. But I also know by the cover that they're around, the bottom composition that I'm dealing with, and even the lake that I'm fishing, that's my target right there. You know what I mean?
Right.
So you have to assume some things, and then you either have to prove yourself wrong. More often than not, you prove yourself wrong by not being able to catch those fish after throwing the kitchen sink at them. You're like, all right, they're not bass, and then you're gone. You know what I mean? Because eventually bass do react to something that you're throwing to them more often than not.
Yeah. And like if it's just outside the cone, will it skew the size at all?
Yes, definitely.
It does.
Yep.
So that's where you get the bigger size or the smaller size.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. You even
Say
see it in
big-
objects too. Like when I'm scanning boulders, if I get the right angle at the boulder, it almost looks like it's bait. I've confused boulders with bait at times until I get a real good view of what I'm dealing with. So it does.
Yeah, it's because
the
it's
object.
just outside the cone. It's kind of blurry. Looks all that
Exactly.
like a ball of bait.
Yep. And the darkness beneath it makes it look like it's separated from the bottom. And then you get the right angle, you're like, oh, it's a boulder. You know what I mean? Well, it
That's
just
when you
always
jump
stays
on
in the same
360
position.
and
Yeah,
that's
but
when you look over to the 360 and you see, okay, that's actually a boulder.
yeah, exactly. So I use them So I use them in conjunction with each other a lot, But I'll just mark things in scout mode and then change the view, and then be able to fish it top to bottom. Because again, the thing with scout mode is you can't discern the fish in the water column. You can't quite tell that. You can put depth on your display, so you know how deep you're fishing, but you don't know where the fish are at 2 feet down, 3 feet down, or on the bottom. You can't quite tell that when you're in scout mode.
You just kind of see it when you're bringing your bait back. You're like, okay, I just need to let it drop a little further.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've used it once. I was on Kyle's boat.
Yep.
And he kept pointing out fish down the bottom. I'm like, I mean, I guess it could be. I don't know. He's like, no, it's definitely a fish. Then he'd drop down and it would move. Could barely even see it myself. It just almost looked like a thicker patch of grass that we were looking at. But it was a fish. Almost every time when he pointed it out, it was definitely a fish.
Yeah.
I
So
think it's just that one thing you just have to get used to.
the 3 times I've used it, twice was with TJ at Smallmouthfreaks, and one of that was 2 days we're on the St. Lawrence River, and that was cool because you've been up there, Sheron. You know how many fish there are and how much crazy varied structure there is to fish there.
Yep.
And we pulled up on this spot, and I think it was only like 20 feet deep, and we were actually in Lake Ontario for the first day we were there. And he was like, I know there's a boulder over here, and it usually holds a fish. We pull up, and I watch him, and he had made his own version of essentially the right height turret, and I really liked his. And he's sitting there tying on, and he's like, okay, there's a rock. Oh yeah, okay, come here. So I run up from the back of the boat, and he's like, look at that, and it clear as day. You can see this fish swimming around. I was like, holy crap. He's like, what? Doesn't even say anything, just fires out his drop shot, and you can see his drop shot hit and fall down and literally hit the fish in the head, and the thing's like, blah!
It's really exciting with smallmouth. I think you get more bang for your buck when you start out with crappie, and then you go to smallmouths because collectively they roll together and they react a lot faster. Largemouth by general, at least especially up here, are kind of a little more individual, and they're also sometimes more cover orientated. You know what I mean? So it's a lot harder, and I found. And because they often around here in a little bit shallow water is why I focus a little more on scout mode, But one thing I've noticed with forward-facing sonar, right, is the lure you're using, the type of density you're using, like weight or whatever, gives you a different return. And kind of going to put a plug in here too at the same time. Also because we're in New Hampshire, you guys are in New Hampshire. New Hampshire's lead-free. One thing I notice is when I'm out fishing using lead. Tungsten, or even a lead-free product like lead-free bass jigs, drop shot weights. They shine differently. The return is incredibly different. I didn't notice it at first, until I went inside of fishing Winnipesaukee in much deeper water, like the fish offs they had at this 18 qualifier a year ago. If you were on that kind of smelt pattern, you were already off to a bad start if you couldn't catch fish deeper than 40, 50, even 60 feet of water. And it was some really good smallmouth caught because of forward-facing sonar now. Weather-wise played a big factor because the weather was good, so guys were out in the broads. I'm talking about particular lakes for guys that don't know, but Lake Winnipesaukee has the main lake itself is called the Broads, and really, really deep water out there, 90, 100 feet, 120 feet or whatever. But there were fish being caught in excess of 60 feet of water. Guys normally don't fish that deep. But with forward-facing sonar, it made it a lot easier. And what you saw was you could see more when you're fishing that deep. You really could see your bait. You really could see the fish, and it resulted a lot better. So for that particular situation, I noticed the drop shot weights I was using had a better return versus depending on what I was using. I didn't use lead. I used tungsten and lead-free, but the lead-free one, I don't know what it is. The density between bismuth and tin, it's an alloy. It just showed up a lot shinier, So just your lure itself, the type of lure you can use will give you a better. It'll show up better in forward-facing sonar. That's why a lot of guys use jerk baits, because a jerk bait is what you find is you're trying to get this bait right where the fish is at, and you don't have an ideal bait anymore, and you realize the jerk bait is the number one bait that's going to stop at no matter where you put it at in the water column. So you really can study that bait and you can study that fish. So guys that got really good at forward-facing sonar, their jerkbait game went up exponentially. Their drop shot game went up exponentially because they can use it very well, to see their bait. You know what I mean? So take that in consideration when you're using it. Finding the right bait, like an umbrella rig, I heard shows up really, really good in forward-facing sonar. And I haven't even used that yet because I just haven't been on any legs that I want to try the umbrella rig. And I'm just caught up in my own learning curve, you know what I mean? But choosing the right bait will help you learn your forward-facing sonar a lot faster versus not choosing the right bait.
Yep. So there's 2 specific techniques that I really want to. I'm getting it at some point. If all goes to plan, I'll have it at the end of this year. And the 2 things I'm looking forward to most is blade bait and jerk bait, because they're things that my confidence has gone sky high to 0. Back and forth multiple times with both those techniques. And I have a lot of different, means of how I fish both of those, and I've done extremely well on both baits in a number of cases, but I've also gotten my ass handed to me on days that I was convinced that should have been it. And then, getting that kind of verification that it was it when I talked to other people, they were either on that lake or fishing, a different body of water that was still similar in what it had to offer. And they're like, oh yeah, that was like the deal, but I just couldn't figure it out. And to be able to have a tool like forward-facing sonar that could at least start to give me some form of feedback to like, okay, I think this is the cadence to get them. And if I could see that those fish are like not even coming remotely close to it, then I know that's wrong and I can make my adjustments from that. And that's the big thing that I think sets apart. I have to be careful how I phrase this. Kind of touching upon that subject where, a lot of guys think very negatively about this technology where and blatantly, some people just straight up say it's cheating. Well, it's not. If it were that easy to use and to the point where you could confidently call it cheating, well, then literally anybody that put it on their boat should be able to succeed like greatly with it. But that's not the case.
It's state records caught everywhere.
Right. And a great, completely different example about that just happened on Father's Day, talking with my father-in-law, lifelong golfer. And he finally got his first rangefinder. And he looked at me and was like, Sean, this thing is like cheating. It is just cheating. It makes it too easy. I looked at him and I was like, no, that's bullcrap. He's like, what do you mean? I was like, you telling me if you give me a rangefinder, I can finally shoot under 100 for the first time in my life? And he's like, fair point. Because I'm dog crap at golf. I love it, and I have some good days. And I'll put together a few good swings, and that's what keeps getting me to go back. Because if I get into a groove, I can hit the ball pretty well with a series of friggin' irons. Except for my driver. Can't hit that for crap.
I suck at driving.
But my short game really is phenomenal. I'm not saying that to exaggerate anything. It's something like from day one, I've been an exceptionally good putter. I just can't get off the tee to save my life. So it doesn't matter if I can putt 2 times or less every time I get on the green. I can't get there in less than 10 swings.
One thing you touched on with lure selection with the blade baits and the jerk baits. One thing I learned a lot with forward-facing sonar is your bait doesn't fall nearly as fast as you think it does. It doesn't get to the bottom as fast as you think you are at times. The first bait I started using was just a small swim bait with like a 3/8 ounce ball head. And when I would stop my retrieve at times, even with my drop shot, I thought it was down there by feeling the weight on the line. And it actually wasn't. Once I started watching my lure, I was amazed at just one little wind and lift of the rod. The lure's like way out of the strike zone. So you really got to watch your lure and slow down and really make sure you're getting bottom contact when you actually were not getting bottom contact at the time. So just using it to watch your lure like a blade bait, a jerk bait alone is going to show you exactly what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong, and how to keep things in the strike zone without winding your bait up, But you wouldn't know that. It'd be a lot harder to know that, because you're looking to feel something to tell you where your bait is, where now you can see where your bait is with the forward-facing sonar.
Yep, spot on with that. So there's 2 things I really wanted to cover too, aside from kind of this broad yet still very specific approach to this, and that was specific applications for this for both shallow water largemouth, especially in New England. As you know, we have such a variety of bodies of water and the vegetation, the structure, the whole 9 yards. And then deep water smallmouth. But there's actually been quite a few questions here in the chat that I do want to address before we get into it. Mm-hmm. And David Roy, any Bass Addict, had a really good one. Do you think forward-facing sonar helps you fish more efficiently simply by eliminating dead water? This is by far my most curious question. What I think is going to be the best benefit of use for forward-facing sonar for myself. But as someone who's used it for multiple years now, what's your take on that?
Yeah, it makes me a lot more efficient because one, no cast is wasted. There's often times where I'll find myself taking a cast and I'm like, the forward facing sonar is facing this way and I'm casting that way. And I'm like, Brown, you're not really maximizing what's going on here, right? But at the same time, see, we already know the properties of our lure. So you know what your lure is doing without without watching it, right? I can hear a fish hit my top water and still know within 1.5 seconds I set the hook. It's muscle memory, right? You always want to see that 'cause that's part of top water is seeing the hit. But there's been many times where you get bit by not looking like a jerkbait. You start talking, all of a sudden, boom, you get hit, right? So with that being said, I didn't eliminate dead water as I discovered fish hiding objects, so I learned to be more thorough because now I can scan and look around. So it's twofold, right? You see no fish, all right, it's dead water. But you might not see fish, but you see cover, and fish can hide in cover. Forward facing sonar is really good at showing those fish, and you can see them in the grass. If you shorten your view, like guys are using like 60 to 100 feet distance in their forward facing sonar. But if you shorten it down to like 20, 30 feet, like in scout mode, you can see those fish in the weeds really, really good. And if you're pitching and flipping, you're not pitching, a boat and a half length away from your boat. You're pitching about 10 feet, 15 feet out. So it really helped me eliminate dead water by making what I thought was dead water more productive. So that's the key.
I dig it. I'm trying to think. I had a question that you essentially just answered. So I'm not going to circle back.
I tend to do that sometimes. Keep going.
It's that elaboration that I love about you. So that was David, and then there was another one. Cam.
There we go. Yep.
So with active target, how do you adjust the contrast based on the water clarity? I've been messing with it, but not really understanding it. That's a good question.
Yeah, that is a question, right? So you can adjust so I tend to use auto a little bit more because it adjusts faster. This time of year right now, we have, all the pollen and stuff. Eyes are red, I'm all itchy. That pollen's been like making the water clarity off. And then turbulence can affect your water clarity too, right? So what I found is by shortening your distance, you maximize your return. The farther away you're looking, the weaker your return is. So adjust your contrast by just adjusting your depth going in and out. Now with forward facing sonar, there's not much that you can do to adjust it. There's not much at all. You have sensitivity, then you have your depth. So sensitivity is kind of variable because if you're in vegetation, then you're going to get kind of blown out. But if you're in like super clear water, like Lake Winnipesaukee, you don't need your sensitivity as high, so it does depend on your water clarity, your depth, and water turbulence. But the shorter your view is, the better your return is going to be. Shorter meaning how far away you're looking from the boat.
Yep. All right. Jim had another good question. How do you focus on your fishing, what's in the water, when you are focused on the screens? Before you answer that.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's something that the other guy, TJ, that was supposed to come on, has made a point to emphasize many a time. Just when talking about him, shooting the shit, we're out there fishing. Because we've been out in the same body of water as him probably like a dozen different times now. And yeah, you're already laughing about it. There are some days where he has said that. He's like, man, like I still haven't learned my lesson, though I should have at this point. There are some days where I get locked in looking at this thing because you're getting like 90% of a return of feedback from the fish that you think like you just keep staring at. You're like, I'm just missing something. They're not closing that gap. And it's bitten them in the ass more often than not. And there's been one time specifically that we outfished it. Dude's a hammer. I would never bet money against him. If I was in another tournament with him, I would just know that I'm going to settle for one place behind him, period. But there was one day that we beat him. We didn't have live scope, and he said at the end of the day, because what did we catch? 23 pounds that day? Was that no, it was a 22 pound.
23, 24.
No, the 23.7 pound bag, nobody else was there. That was the day you caught that 5 pounder under his feet, or the 4.5.
Oh yeah.
And he was so locked into it, he didn't just go fishing. Like, the fish were where he needed to be. If he just stuck with what he should have been doing versus looking at the screen all day, he probably would have kicked the crap out of us because he knows that lake better than we do. But the first two spots he got to, he was seeing enough coming from the fish on his screen, reacting to his bait that he was like, just doing this all day. Nope, that's not it. Let me try this again. Yeah, it's still not it. Let me try this again. And I don't know. So
you just got lost in it.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the impression I'm getting from Jim's question. But I wanted to point that out, that I had some feedback to offer.
Yeah, you have to make some decisions, right? You gotta how do you want to fish for the day? What are you trying to learn? Because fish finders, they don't lie. If there's nothing beneath you and nothing in front of you, you don't see anything. There's something beneath you, something in front of you, then you see something, right? So you have to make a decision. Are you trying to fish what you see, right? Or are you trying to fish what you discover, right? You can discover a weed edge and stop fishing the weed edge, right? You can see fish and start chasing fish. I found where I'm chasing fish, I look up, I'm like, whoa, where the hell am I at? Didn't even realize I was this far out, right? I've never bumped into anything, but I've looked up and I thought I was in 20 feet of water, and now I'm in 90 feet of water because I was just so looking at bait, chasing it around. So you become impervious to what's going on around you if you are just focused on your screens. So that's why I say you have to make that decision. Is that the way you want to fish? Because in some places, say you're on like Lake Erie, the Great Lakes or whatever, like it's nothing to look at. It's no grass to look at. It's no trees.
There's no
You don't really
land.
hear birds. You don't hear no peepers. Like you just hear the motion of the lakes or whatever, right? Or the waves crashing. So all you're gonna look at is your fish finder, right? But then you go fishing, like a river system. There's a lot to look at in a river system. Shoreline, trees, bird cover, surface activity. If you're in some serious cover, you're looking for where bluegill beds are at right now. You're looking at all these things. So you're checking your reference with one eye on looking at your screens, but you're also in tune with what's going on, right? And there's no more case in point than like fishing early in the morning or fishing at nighttime. Now, I don't fish at nighttime often anymore, but I used to fish nighttime all the time. Then kind of got away from that stuff, once I got the boats I want, I started going in the daytime. But in the morning, in the morning early, it's just the way it is, right? You know what I mean? So early in the
That's why I
morning,
still go out at night.
it's true, man. I mean, let's just face it, right? So just I got nothing against night fishing, but fish use their lateral line at nighttime. They focus on sound, sight is like the second, third sense. They focus on sound, and then often they'll do that olfactory test, which they're going to put a bait in their mouth and taste it. But it's all sound. So if it sounds good, you're going to hit because visibility is completely poor. And so fish make the most mistakes. Mark my words, they make the most mistakes. A big fish makes the most mistakes at nighttime because it cannot see. It cannot sit there and discern what the bait's looking. So guys that catch, a lot of fish with big swim baits during the day, you really have your bait dialed into a different kind of level because at nighttime it is easier because now if you find the right cadence, the right presentation by sound, that fish is going to smash that. But daytime, that fish sees that bait, so you got to do a little bit more. So for clear the air there. But basically, nighttime, you're using your audio sense, right? So you're not looking at your fish finder, so you're still in tune with what's going on. Early morning, you're still using your audio sense. You kind of hear things. It's kind of quiet. It's kind of still. You hear nature around you. So, and I think you never lose those skills. It's like a hunter. Put a hunter in the woods. The guy's gonna be able to, or she's gonna be able to figure out where they're at because they're just gonna focus on their senses, their inner senses. So I feel when you're out fishing, even though you have 3 screens, 4 screens, 5 screens, whatever you have on the boat, if you're still in tune with your environment, then the screens aren't going to distract you the same way they might distract someone else that's going out there to really focus on that fish finder because they want to learn or they spent X amount of money or their boat just came with it. Whatever the reason is, you're making a decision to focus on what you see versus what you're aware of. You know what I'm saying? So having a good balance is always best, but sometimes the lake or body of water will dictate how you fish anyway. Just keep that in mind.
Absolutely.
I mean, even just a basic 2D sonar, I try not to look at it until I really need to. Until I'm like, okay, I need to look at something, see what's going on. Water temp, anything, depth, whatever. I try not to look at anything until I actually need it. Like if we're having an issue and we're not catching something off, like say we're looking at the 3.6 and you're like, okay, there's a rock pile over there. I'll come up, look at that, and I'll look on the other side, see if maybe there's just a random boulder out deep.
Yep.
Or just like, okay, now I kind of understand what's going on here with the structure. With the forward facing, I feel like it'd be kind of hard to get away from because it's always right there showing you something new every second.
Yeah, you have to stop. When I was fishing the Connecticut River, I was fishing a section that's got a lot of pilings, and I just kept looking around. You see so much, right? So you have to, like, man, do I want to keep seeing, right, or do I want to focus on what I've already saw? So you have to make those decisions right there, or else you will get lost in the sauce. But hey, if it starts to work, then you're doing the right thing. But if it doesn't work, then you have to realize, okay, you know what? Let me just fish what I found now, not what I keep seeing.
Like,
You
okay,
have to
we
make
see
that
the fish are
decision.
suspended. Let's fish for suspended fish.
Right.
Correct. Correct. Well, you just know now, so now you get to fishing. Like I use my electronics to take everything in, and right now I'm really working on just using my point one system, making sure I know how far I am, how long it takes to get the right kind of bait, how long it's going to take to get down there. So when you really get into offshore structure fishing, your distance and presentation is really, really key. Your noise is a key. So you want to have everything completely in harmony, but that's a lot to learn in a short amount of time. So you have to go out and say, okay, I'm just going to learn how to line my boat up with this object. And once I learn how to do that, now I'm going to use my forward facing to just tell me if there's any fish around this object, and if I'm not sure how wide this object really is, I need to get over this object real quick and look at my 2D sonar and look at my down image and just see how big this rock is, how big this grass is, how hard this bottom really is. And then you back off again, and then you start the fishing because you've already took all that stuff into consideration. Now, if you're trying to learn all that stuff and fish at the same time, that's just doing the most, and it's really hard to do without having all that experience beforehand, going out and just focusing on certain things and learning them. Guys make it look really easy, but what they're not showing you is they're going out, at different times of the day. They're going to different bodies of water and learning their electronics. So when it's really time to catch fish, like I'm going to go compete next week, it's time to catch some fish. You know what I mean? If I go to Lake Shirley tomorrow for a couple hours, I'm going out to see, okay, how can I learn this weed edge with my forward facing sonar? How can I see this bait work right, with my forward facing sonar? Whether I get bit or not, it doesn't matter. I still need to understand how fast my bait drops and what it looks like in different views, so I can apply it to when I'm really going to go compete. Because let's face it, that's what the technology really is for. It's meant on the highest level to go compete. You take it and enjoy it for recreation, but at the same time, without that forward facing sonar, you can still enjoy yourself fishing. And if you're not, then you're in the wrong sport.
Damn right.
You know what I mean?
Everything about that was very well said. Most importantly, I'm glad you really brought up that point about all of the time and effort that goes into before you even go out there to really use it, and especially in a tournament situation or scenario. And that's what I like when people say using this is cheating, and 99% of the time they're talking about it at the pro level. I personally think that's it's disrespectful to a degree. Like, you're talking about professionals that have been doing this at the highest level for how many years now? And they've been successful, or else they wouldn't still be on the trail, because they do have to maintain minimum points every year to keep making that cut and get the invite back to stay at the highest level of the professional level. And all of a sudden now they're cheating. You're just going to completely disregard the literal decades of experience, not just at the professional level, but all those countless thousands of hours they put in to understand every condition at every time of the year for both species of fish. But all of a sudden now it's cheating because I have live sonar. I'm sorry, but that's bullshit. You can't just disregard all of that experience leading up to that fact and then point to one and say, oh, that's cheating. No, you've just put an extremely powerful tool in the hand of someone that knows their shit.
Then take forward-facing sonar away from them and go fish against them.
I'd love to see that.
They're gonna lose.
Yes, they are.
Well, the thing about it is, it's and I get why they say that it's cheating, because they're on the outside looking in, and like, how many advantages can you have when it comes to finding fish? But at the end of the day, it's still a living creature. It still has a mood. There's no mood finder. It's not gonna get a purple screen when the fish are ready to bite, or a yellow screen when they're in spawn. You know what I mean? So you still have, at the end of the day, you still have to figure out how to trick fish. And what you end up doing is you end up using more lures when you start using forward-facing sonar, because you're seeing a fish shun your bait, where often you might start to figure out how to use that bait to get the fish to bite. Because it shuns your bait so fast, you're more likely to pick up something else and start throwing it. So it's not really cheating. It's more of a distraction until you get it dialed in. But as with anything in life, once the newer stuff comes out, and people learn how to use it, take the time to use it. Other folks always think there's an advantage. When Michael Jordan came out with his shoe, people thought, oh, that's the reason why a dude can fly. That's the reason why a dude can dunk from the foul line, because he's got this sneaker that's making him so much better than anybody. And Hell no, that's not the case. In NFL or baseball, they came with better, more looser uniforms. Guys like Manny Ramirez started hitting home runs more like, oh, his pants too loose, should be tighter. That's not true at all. Football, when they have gloves, now they're catching balls, that they normally wouldn't catch before. And they're like, oh, these guys are cheating. No, they're still out there working. They're still out working the chemistry with the receiver. They still have good hands already, else they'd be a D-back. So it's not true. It's just equipment makes things better. Why would you wear, sneakers in the rainstorm? What I mean? Why would you wear a winter coat, in the summertime? You're going to wear some kind of cool gear to keep yourself cool. So all you're doing is just finding things that allow you to perform better because you're putting in the work to be able to perform better, and you're finding that thing that kind of elevates you, But the wrong tool in the wrong person's hand doesn't make them better. Your learning curve is still the same no matter what you get, no matter what you do. You get lucky fishing, but your learning curve is always still the same. You still have to take time to learn this stuff and apply it, but or even put money down to really, go out and use it. So it doesn't shorten your learning curve at all, no matter what technology you have.
Spot
It really
on.
doesn't.
Yep.
Like I said before, you still gotta know how to catch the fish.
You gotta get out
Right.
there. Yeah, you still gotta get out there.
Yep. So one of the things and I'm trying to be cognizant of the time because I know you still have a lot of stuff to do. So
all good
one of
now.
the things that I really wanted to discuss was overall. Originally, let's talk about largemouth shallow and smallmouth
Okay.
deep, but I guess let's kind of just broaden it up and go shallow versus deep.
Mhm.
How are you changing your presentation or the use, sorry, of forward-facing sonar when you're specifically fishing for, we'll say, shallow water largemouth or just shallow water fish in general in New England? And then especially as you're going into different types of bodies of water, you know how varied it is here in New England. We've got kettle ponds, we've got reservoirs, we've got glacial lakes that still have quite a bit of shallow water, like good fishable shallow water to offer. River systems, like, I mean, from where we live, in a 30-minute range, I could hit all four types of those fisheries.
Yep.
And so I'm just curious for the shallow perspective and where that, I guess, depth cutoff you want to distinguish, by all means, pick the number. But what is the shallowest that you can get away with it? And then what is the whole range of changes that you are utilizing with your forward-facing sonar when fishing shallow?
Okay, so basically, I have a hard rule. About 12 feet is what I like to use my forward-facing sonar in scout mode. If I'm fishing deeper than 12 feet of water, I'm using my forward-facing sonar for top water only because it shows a better view. I basically just block out the bottom, fishing deep. So I'm fishing over deep water, but I'm targeting fish that I feel are up in the water column. Particularly in clear water, I know fish will travel a distance to hit a lure.
Yeah.
Largemouth initially, I'm naturally going to think shallow. So when I set up for shallow water right now, I have a Hydro Wave, I have a Mega 360, and I have my fish finder in scout mode, and then I have a HDS Live that I'm using for my Lawrence Active Target. And on my display, I have water temperature and depth, and that's kind of all I need because I'm not gonna ignore the fact that my glass with my eyes with polarized glasses are going to see the dark holes in the weeds. The forward facing sonar, it's not going to show me that the same kind of way. So I'm still utilizing my eyes looking around to see cover. But like particularly this time of year, a good pattern to use is during post spawn is fishing bluegill beds. Well, that forward facing sonar in scout mode, it shows the beds really, really good. It shows it better than in my 360,
Damn.
and further away. Yeah, I
It's
did one
impressive, actually.
little video. I think it was late last summer or late last spring or whatever. I did a quick video where it was the first time where my forward facing sonar showed something better than my 360. And it was because of the way the beds were. And then the thing about it is, it showed the dark rings of the bluegill beds, and it showed the bluegills sitting in there. My 360 doesn't do that to that degree. At shallow water, the 360 can lose some of its efficacy. So in the
Oh, yeah.
super shallow water, the scout mode, as long as there's something to see, right? Because you're in a mud flat, the scout mode doesn't show anything; it's just all dark. But if you had some hard bottom, some rock here, wood or whatever, it shows it really, really well. And the difference is again is you're looking at a tree, looking at a rock, you see the fish go to the rock. With a 360, the fish is here, then the fish is here, and then the fish is here. And at some point in time, the fish might blend in. So you don't always know where it's at. With the forward-facing sonar in shallow water, it's a lot easier to cast ahead of a fish and get him to bite versus seeing that fish and try to cast ahead of that fish. So I'm seeing fish before they become aware of me. And when you add like, this is not what this conversation is about. When you add like the hydro wave and you find the right sound that's in tune with the environment, they don't know I'm there. And I've seen this where the fish will just come up to my boat, like looking for that sound, or I'll see loons go by and stuff like that, So one thing by itself never works. In conjunction is much better. But for largemouth fishing, like right now going up to Lake Oneida, I'll have my forward facing sonar in scout mode, and I'm just gonna go into a bay and start scanning and looking for grass edges. I know it's a grass lake, so I know I'll be able to find the grass edges. And that's pretty much how I'm gonna use it for largemouth fishing. It's basically to find weed edges and boulders and things like that, and see if fish are around. Because in shallow water, that's the most effective thing. But once I get to 12 feet of water, and now I'm thinking of smallmouth, because they tend to be in the middle part of the water column, depending what time of day it is. And largemouth are generally in deep water. They're generally cover orientated. They're not really in the middle part of the water column, like at least up here in the northeastern part of the state. So now I'm going more into forward mode, but I need to learn the area of what I'm fishing, so then I can start. Because forward mode is like a flashlight, right? You just don't shine a flash it anywhere. You kind of flash it to where what you really want to see. You don't just shine over there and look over here, right? So when you're fishing in deep water and you understand what is you're trying to fish, you understand where the bottom composition is, where it goes from sand to rock or sand to mud, or you understand where the rock edges are at, where the grass edges is at. Now you're using that forward-facing sonar to actually see the fish moving around, how they're relating to that particular cover. So I'll use them in conjunction with each other. But first, I start shallow always to understand the type of cover. And then as you go deeper to look for that same cover, you need that forward-facing sonar, because now you want to see that cover on the bottom. With a scout mode, you're not going to see the same. You don't see the depth of the cover. You don't see how high it is off the bottom once you start getting to deeper water.
That's a really good point. And then, I'm trying to think about that. Like, so I only have Mega 360 and then, regular side imaging and just 2D sonar. And we utilize the 360 the same way to a large degree. But like things like that, like depth of grass, that's hard to tell with something like that. I mean, you can see right where it ends. You can see where it's thicker versus thinner, if it's broken up here and there, the whole 9 yards. But yeah, like that's a really important distinction that you can't, at least for me, I can't always easily tell that level of information when I'm looking at it from the 360.
No, you won't at all. You just know that the grass is there. You have to get over it. Like I'll toggle, from the 360. Before I had the active target, I just toggle from the 360 to down imaging, see how deep the grass was. And once I knew that, because it's not going to change. You're going to be 6 feet of grass, you're going to be 6 feet of grass, unless you're fishing some kind of hump. So it's not going to change. But I would do down imaging a 2D sonar just to see how high the grass was, and then go back to 360, and it worked fine that way. And also, for guys that are struggling, because like that's the latest thing, is to have a 360, forward-facing sonar, and some other unit for like 2D sonar or whatever. You can get all three with one. But if you're struggling, forward-facing sonar is actually a better option to get versus the 360, because you can use scout mode. And one thing I didn't touch on, with using the forward-facing sonar and also using the scout mode, I learned to find an optimum speed moving along where I can see everything and still keep fishing. And that's the key, is finding that optimum speed. So now you can really scout around, because if you're looking and not fishing, you're not moving as much. You're kind of eliminating, you're not covering the same amount of water that you would once you figure out that right speed where everything is in sync and it's not blurred. So it helped me cover water by finding the right depth, how far I'm shooting out. I like to do 60 feet is a lot. If I'm in an area where there's not much cover at all, then I'll shoot out 60 feet a while, like I'm fishing the Cape or something. The Cape is bare. It's not much out to Cape. There's not much to visibly see. So I'll shoot my forward-facing sonar a lot further away just to see fish moving around. But around here in Central Mass, where I have a lot more cover, then I'll have my forward-facing sonar, and basically 20 to 40 feet, which is further enough. That's basically, 2 boat lengths is 40 feet. So that's far enough. A typical cast is like 60 feet of water. So use that in for reference. Your boat, average bass boat's about 18 to 20 feet of water. Your average cast is about 60 feet from the boat. So you're basically dealing with about a 20-foot range where your lure is really in the strike zone before it starts to ascend up or it starts to go down. So I try to find what that optimum cast range is where my bait's going to get down and be in the strike zone so I can maximize that forward facing sonar. Another thing which was hard to understand is when your lure is 10 feet away from you, it's like an inch on the screen. So it looks like it's underneath the boat, but it's not. It's still 10 feet away from you. And that was the hardest thing to adjust because once I started figuring it out, I started getting bites at the boat. But initially, I go to wind my lure up because I'm thinking, okay, it's out of the view, and all of a sudden I see it speed up again. I'm like, oh, 10 feet is only an inch, so let me understand what I'm doing because 10 feet away from the boat is a significant distance away, especially if you're fishing shallow water.
Oh, yeah.
Deep water, 10 feet away from the boat is not much. You might as well just be under the boat, and just to circle back with how I fish, forward facing sonar for like deep water for smallmouth. Well, now you're looking at your jig. You really don't watch your punching bait or your flipping jig or your frog on the water when you're fishing for largemouth. It's not something that you do. When you're sight fishing or spawn fishing, you watch the lure and how the fish reacts to the lure. But you don't really do that for largemouth in shallow water. You're gonna spook the fish. It doesn't go down like that. But with smallmouth, because they're just naturally a curious creature, and because you're fishing in deep water, you're actually looking for how the fish reacts to your lure. So that's the best case in point to use is the fish. Are you really gonna watch your lure for the fish? If not, then put it in scout mode and learn some cover. If you're gonna watch your lure hit the fish, then put in forward facing sonar and go out deep, for deep water fish, particularly, smallmouth.
Expanding on that for the smallmouth,
Mm-hmm.
just how much of a difference has it made for you when you're out there targeting them when they're in that summer mode, when they're like suspended out over deep nothingness a lot of the time, especially when they get in that smelt pattern,
Mm-hmm.
and then keeping track of the movement of schools of fish? Have you
Mm-hmm.
do you think has it been like astronomically helpful for that or moderately helpful?
No, it's astronomical, and the reason why it's astronomical is because you use that forward-facing sonar to find what the fish are feeding on, right? You got to figure, right? So with that beam shooting out, right, you get the most view in the middle of the water column. What's normally in the middle of the water column? It's bait. The predator fish are generally below the bait fish. The active ones will be in the bait, but generally they're below the bait. So when you're scanning around, and this is case in point was at Winnipesaukee, it was only I learned how, it was only way I could catch fish by just going to, you know, structure or deep water, whatever I went to, and just looking around, fishing slow, looking for bait, looking for bait. And once I saw the bait, then I kind of adjust my eyes, and you would see the smallmouth there. Like they really, you'd see like one little blip, like 10 feet away from the bait or a blip beneath the bait. And what I realized was the fish were just they were like watching the bait. When they weren't eating, they were just watching the bait. But you could still cast out in front of them with your drop shot and watch it go down, and they would go after it. You couldn't do that without forward facing sonar. And if you were in too shallow of water, you wouldn't be able to see what you needed to see. So like 50 feet was like the ideal depth to find fishing 35 feet down or down the bottom 50 feet of water. When you were in 35 feet of water, you realize you were kind of looking pretty good at about just 20 feet out of that 30 feet of water. So the deeper you went, the more you saw, so it made things better because I was able to go to a lake that was conducive, for forward facing sonar with the lures I was using, the style of fishing I was doing.
Nice. All right.
So how shallow can you go with it and
Um,
actually like pinpoint a fish if you're like in mud, like muddy
uh-huh.
water?
Well, see, I'd say about 3 feet of water. Well, so here's your problem, right? So your transducer is going to be above the prop. It needs to be, I think it's like 8 inches or so. It's like the size of my hand, a little bit smaller. But basically, you need about 8 inches to a foot. The transducer is going to be above the prop. So if you think about that, you need about, like, I don't know, a foot of water for your prop to be able to spin around, and your skeg to hit the bottom. Your transducer is just beneath the surface. So you're looking at maybe 2 feet of water. After that, it's not doing the same for you. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
not doing the same for you at all. So 3 feet is nice. 3 feet and more is good. As long as it's under the water, it's gonna show you something. You know what I mean? That's pretty much the deal. So you're looking at
Yeah.
basically about a foot and a half, 2 feet of water, and then it's what you're looking for. Just looking at fish go, because more than likely you're going to see them going away from you, right? You never want to see a fish going away from you. You want to see a fish kind of just relating to the cover, So,
Right.
so I use it again. Like right now, I'm using it to find bluegill beds. Like that. That's going to work for for next month. The further up north you go, the more bluegill beds you're going to see. Further south you go, you're not going to see them. So that's a really good pattern right now in June and July, using scout mode to find bluegill beds. Then you just start fishing. You know what I mean?
That was a big boomer. Sorry, we were both like,
Right? Mic drop, right?
no, it was like perfect timing. The moment you stopped speaking, boom.
Got some nice
Okay,
comments,
so
man.
then-
Appreciate it.
On the flip side of that, what's the deepest you found it to be helpful and effective? And because like that, the thing we noticed with Mega 360 is that when we got into the St. Lawrence, that's the first time where I felt like I was really depth restricted. Like we found a spot. It was 2 spots. One was one that you gave us, and then another one was not that far from it. And it was like it was a spot that topped out at 65 feet.
Oh.
But we were catching fish on it. And I had my 360 maxed out, and I didn't have much left where I could see it. I was like, well, it's kind of fucking useless. So
No.
we just know our positioning is good enough, so we'll rock it from there.
Basically, so once you get into deep water, the 360 shines when you're actually trying to look at fish in the water column, right? So I first saw this on I think it was Cayuga Lake last year, where, man, I saw so many gar, like it was crazy. I saw them on a 360 before I, saw them breaking the surface or whatever. So the deeper you go, the more the 360 is showing you what's in the water column. As far as bottom, on Winnie, like you need a place that has a really hard bottom for the 360 to really shine in deep water. I saw boulders in about 45 to 47 feet of water in my 360. So that's about how deep I'm going. Now with the forward-facing sonar, it knows no limits. You can see those rocks down on the bottom, and it's really good for showing you like the sides of humps is what I really like the 360. I mean the forward-facing sonar for, because it shows you that a side view of the
contour
structure.
of it, yeah.
That really does a lot.
If there's
Like
any
I said,
overhangs or anything. Like that.
exactly. That's the key. So it helps you understand what you're fishing a lot better when you do it. And also what I found is again, it helps you with your accuracy with casting, especially when you're in rough water. You're in rough water, the boat's moving a lot, so you kind of lose sight of what you're trying to fish if you can't quite feel it. You know what I mean? The slightest wind will take you off course. So you can see where your cover is just by moving things around. So it helps, and that helps you find that cover faster. So it's so much more advantage to be used just aside from just
It's like point and
finding
shoot.
fish. Exactly. You just got to look at the flashlight. Wait, let me see what's going on over here. There's nothing tells you more in the dark than a flashlight. So you got to look at it like that. But you're only focused on this particular view right here. So when you it's the downside of it when you get with someone that's in the boat, someone that's new that just saw it, they're gonna just be looking at fish all day long and chasing fish, and it usually doesn't equal a good day. And it usually ends up being a distraction. They're like, look at this, look at that, look at this, look at that. And you got no fish in the boat. So you kind of like got chill a little bit. So I caution anyone to just jump into a boat in a tournament with forward-facing sonar. Like, don't do it to yourself. You're just going to be chasing fish all day long. Use it to go find cover. Let's say like, hey, let's go in this bay. Let's just scan the bay and see, where we should start fishing at. And then it becomes a lot better because you really narrow your focus once you understand what's going on. When you don't understand what's going on, it's just too much to take into consideration, let alone chasing an object that's moving away from you that you don't even know is a bass.
Paralysis by analysis.
right?
Too much input.
Yep.
Like, what do you do with all that?
Yep.
That's where all that time in the water for countless days, weekends, months, years leading, prior to that is what helps you hone all that in a lot faster. That's why I'm really excited to get my hands on it myself, because, at the end of last year, you mentioned earlier about the Winnipesaukee tournament at the STQT last year, and how fishing for those, the smelt feeding smallmouth out in really, really deep water was key. Spot on. I was out there with my high schoolers for their tournament, and the two of those are always like almost back to back every year. Some years they have overlap. Very first year I coached, they did it in the same weekend, and a bunch of coaches had to back out last minute because they weren't allowed to be on the lake for that week, regardless of what the condition was. Even though they're supposed to be coaching, they couldn't be out, or they were DQ'd from the STQT. But anyway, last year saw the same thing, and that was always something that kicked my ass every year. But I'd been working hard to get better at it. And Andrew and I went out to Newfound earlier in the year, and we're like, well, let's work on that underspin bike, because we know that's in our wheelhouse, and that's something that we know is really good for those suspended fish. And it just, we ended up making that work. And then later in the year, I got dialed in on the Demiki rig and really getting that confidence. So now all my techniques and times of the year, regardless of the conditions or where they're staged or what they're feeding on, I feel like I've got it all nailed down. Now, if I can
at least get a couple bites.
Right. Now, if I can add in a tool like live sonar,
That was loud.
that was very loud. That actually reverberated inside.
Keep it up there.
Right.
Keep it up there.
But being able to have that tool, it's I know, depending on the time of year, I've got 10 different spots I can go to on pretty much any body of water. With a handful of exceptions of where I'd want to be able to do that. Maybe down to 2 or 3 spots. But I should be able to roll up, and in most cases, use something like that, be like, okay, one of these 3 things is going to be it today, and we'll know, usually it's we got to take 2 or 3 hours of fishing to, catch something and make it work, versus I roll up with that, there's nothing here, 10, 20 casts, nothing. Literally nothing's coming out of any of that to react. Okay, we're gone. 10 minutes, done. That's the value I see in it. That wasn't as concise as I meant it to be. I'm sorry.
It's all good. One thing we didn't talk about at all with forward-facing sonar is just the views of the transducer, right? So act like this is your transducer. This is how it is in scout mode, and then in forward-facing mode, it's like this. But what a lot of people don't talk about is when it's positioned this way, and that's actually for really fishing beneath the boat. So if you were to figure out what tactics you wanted to start using to learn how to use to get the most out of your forward facing sonar, put it in scout mode and use top water. It's amazing the views you can see. What's crazy is if you get next to someone in a boat, you can see their boat and their motor, and if you get the right view, you can kind of see them standing up. I posted a video that is the craziest thing out, because in scout mode it shoots up out of the water. Your view is it's weird. It's out of the water. If a bird flew close to the water, you would see it in your scout mode. So it's really impressive. And then when you're in forward facing sonar, the best lure right now is a jerk bait. Jerk bait, or a swim bait. You really want to get your 2D sonar game up, your image sonar game, your drop shot game up. Put it in down scan, and now you're fishing beneath the boat. But I recommend that you go out to some deep water, get over some deep structure, and learn this way. Because what you're going to learn is what fish look like in each view, and you're also going to learn what your bait looks like in each view. And that is a lot. So if you just go out and just play with those, you'll find what really works best for you for what you really want to do, and that's how you really start to get better. But just 3 lures to use, top water, scout mode, jerk bait, in forward facing, and then drop shot and down. The drop shot works good in forward facing and down, but you lose sight of fish as you get really close to your boat. Then you want to be looking beneath your boat. So take that in consideration when you're trying to figure out what's the best approach to learning that new technology.
There was another question. Well, I'm just trying to type away here. Where was Sean? Okay. Circling back, kind of related, but a little off topic. Sean wants to know specifically why bluegill beds.
Because the bluegill tastes good when you fry them, bro. That's why. Nah, so a bass is a sunfish, right? You know, let's face it. When the bass is spawning, perch and bluegill, the number one bed robbers, in particular in New England, Northeast. All overall, most often it's bluegill, tilapia, you know, perch. You know, they're the bed robbers. Once the bass is done spawning, you know, they kind of return the favor. You know, they eat their fry, but they're also gonna go eat the smaller size bluegill. You know, so trying to figure out where the bass are at once they're done spawning, you know, a good place to start looking is bluegill beds, because what you'll find is the bluegill bed will be a big clearing right there. They're generally next to some type of cover, you know, and there's always a couple nice sized male bass not too far from that bluegill bed. You know, whether you get them to bite or not, it's on you. But it's a good place to start, a good reference to start. You know, me, I'm using frogs and topwater lures over these bluegill beds, and I'm getting some decent bass. Eventually, those fish will move away from those beds, but they generally go to the prevalent cover that's kind of close to them. So why bluegill beds? You know, because it helps you find the bass this time of year.
Yep. It's like you said, it's a buffet of an easy meal for them. And especially at a time where most of those fish are still in recovery mode and they're trying to fatten up. Like, what better way than just a whole freaking just buffet out in front of you, all these fish that are really pretty much adjacent to where you just were anyway. So, okay, all right, I'm done doing the dance. I'm going to go out here and just kind of lay down in a little deeper water. Just give me a minute.
Yep.
It's not over there. Just get right back up in there. Yeah. Ain't a burger, that's a Whopper. There's a lot of them. And I do the same thing. Although I don't have quite as much luck with a frog. That's another one of the few techniques of reefers, very up and down. Shaky head, on the other hand, no idea why, but a shaky head for those post-spawn fish, especially when they're targeting around bluegill beds, is like lights out good.
I agree.
God, I love fishing a shaky head. Shaky head is love, shaky head is life.
Yeah, I just like top water right now, especially when I'm playing around, you know what I mean? But for competition, I'll definitely be throwing some shaky heads, because that exciting bite, that top water bite can die pretty quickly, get played out pretty quickly, but the fish is still there. So you need to find a way to tickle them. So a shaky head is still a good deal, you know. And a shaky head it's a minnow imitator. You know, a minnow imitator is a small fish imitator. So it's not imitating a crayfish when a worm is doing this. It's imitating a minnow. So you're still targeting what the fish is targeting for its first meals after the spawn. So I see why it works so well.
Oh yeah. Real quick, Chad, thank you very much for the donation, buddy, and you're very welcome. Hooked him up with some help for that tournament we're not doing anymore. He texted me, he's like, "What do you got?" And I was like, "Well, we're not gonna be in anymore, so here you go. Here's everything." Do some fun fishing.
Yeah.
Actually, I want to highlight this one comment from Josh, because it's honestly right in line with what I've heard from a ton of people that have got into some form of forward-facing sonar since day one. He's learned more in 2 years with forward-facing sonar than they did in the 25 years prior to owning it. And I did reply to him, but I mean, dude, that's how I felt with side imaging. And then again with Mega 360, just the amount of information that can be gathered from such incredible tools. Granted, you know, as long as you know what to do with that information, is astounding. For me with side imaging, I already knew like the kind of structure I wanted to find. It just took forever to find it, because all I had to rely on was just down imaging, and then my polarized sunglasses, and hope that I was out there in a good weather day. And I would always try and take advantage of days like that so I could see structure in clearer bodies of water, out in deeper water. And then when I got side imaging, we talked about this on the show not too long ago. Like I have this one stretch on this one body of water that's like, I don't know what, 800 feet long that we keep going out there. All the lines of rocks by the camp and all that crap.
Yep.
And it took me like 5 or 6 years, I forget, to find what I thought was every like sizable boulder down this stretch. And my graph was just like nothing but marks, and it was amazing. And I always did really well down that stretch. And then I got side imaging for the first time. And what took me 5 or 6 years to build, I found all of that and more. Like, I mean, obviously, literally everything else from the bank out to 150 feet in less than 20 minutes. And that was mind-blowing. I already knew what I was looking for, but now, like, that I knew how to find what I wanted to look for that much faster, like, it's like, holy shit. And I was able to learn that much more because I spent way less time breaking down my water. And then Mega 360 was like that times 10. Because now I had already identified all these spots through side imaging and down imaging, but
Now you
not
can just stop and actually look at it and see what the hell you're fishing.
Yeah.
And point and aim and shoot and catch a fish off it.
Yep.
taking that information to that next level. That's not just a rock pile. That's like a rock pile that's some riprap, and there's a couple of pockets of sand in it, and there's one giant boulder there. Oh, and there's a little patch of grass on the other side, too, that we never noticed before. I just thought it was like two big rocks. You know, being able to have like that, and then just, I feel like Live Scope is all of that in one.
First of all,
Just-
big shout out to Joshua Herding. You know, he was just up at St. Lawrence River representing Mass Bass Nation. You know, he qualified for national, so good job, Josh. I also know I've had some conversation with Josh about forward-facing sonar and separate pole transducer mounts. I know that Josh is on another level with his forward-facing sonar. He's more than qualified to talk about the same stuff I'm talking about right now. He's got two transducers, you know, on his trailer motor. He's got one in scout mode, and he's got, you know, one in forward facing because he's not using Mega 360. So Joshua definitely knows what he's talking about, and he didn't get to utilize, you know, his setup up there at St. Lawrence River, but I'm sure if he did, he probably would have got even better in performance on the water. So good job, Josh. But he's definitely a wealth of information when it comes to forward facing sonar.
Nice. Awesome. That is good to know. And I know I've seen a lot of his Facebook posts in the past too, with him talking about stuff like that. And I think we tried to mention everybody. Was it last week? I don't know. When my brain is fried. I've already forgot what week and everything happened. Was it
Right.
last weekend or the weekend before that? The
last
regional?
week, last Wednesday through Friday. Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
so it was
Yep.
last week. We pulled up the results, and
yeah.
everybody that I knew there for names. I was like, "Yep, okay, this person's here. They're doing this. They've done this. They've done this." We try to
Good.
go through everybody.
That's what's up.
Yep, give some love to all the local boys that were out there, and a lot of guys did phenomenal out there.
Killed
Yeah,
it.
man. Yep. They did. Represented well, man.
Yes, they did. Go out there and
Good
show
stuff.
those New York boys what's up.
Yeah.
Well,
Trying to do.
I'm trying to think. Oh, you're gonna do it. You're gonna go out there and do really well. I feel like Oneida
dude,
sets
you're
up
gonna
really well
crush it.
for the kind of fishing that you and I that we do around here. It's not that dissimilar to what we have around here, to an extent.
Yeah, no, it's not, man. The only curveball I had, you know, it's curveball for anybody is the wind on a lake that runs north to south. What's the curveball? If the lake blows
Terrifying.
straight from the south
Oh yeah.
or from the north, it kind of disrupts everything. So in this case, in my experience on Oneida, I got a little bit of experience over there for some different events, but I never faced an actual east wind, which blows from one side to the other, or which is the treacherous wind, because that blowing right into the ramp and just blows everything out. And I never experienced the west wind, which is the same thing. So me, right now, my goal is just to find something to fish in each section of the lake. So I don't scramble. I have to scramble when the wind goes the opposite way I want it to go. You know, I was trying to get my top water game up, and I was doing pretty well in practice. But when the wind blew, it blew all that stuff out. It just was futile. You know, so the goal this year is to be able to run that pattern, you know, wherever I can run it at, aside from the wind. So, but it does set up nice. It's a grass lake. There's smallmouth there. There's largemouth, and I never commit to one or the other species. I just, if they both exist, and I'm gonna be the mixed master, like a DJ. You know what I mean? I'm gonna
Damn
try
right.
to get both fish. You know, whichever one's gonna bite first for me, I'm go figure that out. But I never eliminate one or the other when they're both there. You know,
Just see out there with
Nope.
cut it up.
Oh, that's awesome.
What do you want to
Yeah, boat control. Boat control is really. I see this question here. Can you talk about boat control on forward-facing sonar? So one thing I had touched about earlier, boat control in this case is boat speed, right? That's the first thing, because all your control is moving your trolling motor, right? So if your boat goes this way, you can still move your trolling motor and still see. So that's one of the good things about the forward-facing sonar. Your boat does not need to be going forward for you to see left or right, you know. And you're not really looking 360 all the way, but you're looking at like about 310 degrees or so. Like, you don't really need to see what's directly behind your boat. So you very rarely do that, and often, depending on how you have the transducer on there, it's probably going to hit something anyway. So you don't really quite do that, but you are looking at, you know, like 300 degrees. So boat control is really used for just how far you need to be from your object. You know, that's the biggest thing. And then also, if you're looking at boat control, like using like spot lock or whatever, you know, here's where a separate pole mount can come into play. But also, what I noticed with spot lock and my transducers on there, even though I'm fishing, you should always know what you're fishing at, and even without the forward-facing sonar, you should still know what you're casting at. So when I'm in anchor mode, my Lowrance Ghost trolling motor, and I have my forward facing sonar on, even though I'm fishing this, I still can see what's going on. So if I want a quick fire cast this way, a quick fire cast that way, because I see a school of fish going by or a school of bait fish going by, it works. So the biggest thing with boat control is I think you learn to fish just slow enough or just fast enough where you can process the information you see, so hopefully that answers your question. Just use it. If you're not going, you don't want to go too fast. Slow is always good, but it doesn't process the same if your speed, your speed's not going the right way. So boat control, you want to find yourself a certain length from the bait, from the shoreline, but you also want to know just how far your lure is going. So how far you need to be shooting your forward facing sonar out, so you kind of fish a little bit slower, when you can slow enough to process the information that your forward facing sonar is telling you.
I mean, I could see it being kind of a pain with your boat control if it's super windy and you only have it mounted on, you don't have it on a separate turret,
Hmm.
and it's still mounted on your trolling motor, and you got spot lock on,
Hmm.
you're trying to stay in one spot, but it's windy blowing like 30 behind you, like trying to move you all around, and you still got to turn that trolling motor to look around. Because that really mess you up a lot.
Actually,
blow you off the
no.
spot.
It really didn't. I was curious about that because I was one of the first. I think I was probably the first person to actually got a separate pole mount. I just didn't say anything, but I ordered my right height turret. I think in December of 2020, and then it arrived in January of 2021. I think I was the first person that had it. And I didn't put it on right away because I was just using my jerk bait in 5 feet of water. So I didn't need it, you know what I mean? But once I put
Right.
it on there, I went to where it would work for me. I went to Lake Shirley, but the fish just don't suspend the same way. So I felt like it wasn't work for me over there. I went to the Connecticut River and started fishing pilings, and that really helped me fish the pilings, a lot better. So it worked out better for me once I really started using it to target, cover in deeper water.
Mm-hmm. Oh, what happened?
Oh, nothing. Sorry, I was looking at the other
It's okay.
stream, and I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah,
He's talking,
I
we
was,
don't hear
I was
him.
kind of
Nope.
confused too there for a second because the other streamer said you were still talking, but you weren't.
Might have digressed a little bit too. It's all good.
Never anything wrong with that.
Okay.
I'm trying to respond to Josh in the comments here. If you got another question for him, Andrew, in the meantime.
Not really.
Good.
I think I got all the answers I need.
Good. We covered all the bases. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, this has been phenomenal because we covered everything that I was hoping to cover and then some. I was itching my ear.
Oh,
And I
it's
threw
your
my
head.
headphones off my.
Just kidding.
But one thing I've learned with the forward-facing sonar, and anyone benefits from this, it makes the area that you've been fishing, the lake you've been fishing, the river you've been fishing, that gets kind of boring. It makes it interesting again, because when you start learning that technology, no matter what body of water you're on, you're going to discover new stuff. You're going to discover so much more just by looking at seeing what's actually around you. It helps you discern cover a lot better. It helps you understand, why fish are holding in certain places. It also helps you just target a particular part of the water column that is unpressured, and that's the middle of the water column. All of a sudden the middle of the water column has life now because you can see what's going on beneath the surface and above the bottom, where before, you saw what's above the surface and on the bottom. You know what I mean? So it's a whole new world to explore, no matter what body of water you go to, as long as there's some depth, 'cause obviously you want some depth there. If not, you're just looking at to discover just cover, which is cool too. But I've seen so much more. I understand fish behavior so much more because you just see what they're doing. One thing you realize is like they're always moving. Like they don't sit still. Like it's funny how we think fish are stationary. Lure is there, lure comes by the fish comes and bites it. But nothing could be further from the truth. They're always like moving. you know, so you start to realize, you know, am I moving my bait too fast? Am I moving my bait too slow? You know, even noise, I've learned to be more quieter because I can see fish movements through my by looking at forward-facing sonar. So I operate a lot more efficiently all around, you know, in how fast I go, you know, um, how far my lure goes and how long I wait for my lure to get to the bottom. You know what I mean? All those things are enhanced now. They're better because of forward facing sonar. You know, so I don't think you need it to succeed. I think that's still nonsense because just like a Senko, you know, everybody can be using it, but only one guy is going to win. You know what I mean? So don't ever feel that you got to use it to keep up and you need it to survive. Just having some way of seeing what else is around you aside from what you have is really the biggest advantage. Just understanding your surroundings, you know what I mean? Seeing under a dock, you know, or seeing a grass edge or seeing a boulder in a place where you never saw boulders before because you're always flying by too fast. You know, use it to discover um, versus just trying to fish and then sequentially your fishing game is gonna increase. You know,
Nice.
It's just another tool.
that's right, man.
It's a very powerful tool.
Leave you guys with that.
All right. Well, I gave everybody in the chat last chance here to get in last minute questions, but this has already gone on a little bit longer than I anticipated it going. But that's okay. We always go at the pace of the conversation, and that was beautiful. We got in absolutely everything, and then some that I didn't even think to cover. So, again, thank you, Sheron, for coming on, man. Greatly appreciate it. Go ahead and take a minute again. Tell everybody where they can follow you for all your social media, the whole 9 yards, man. The floor is yours.
Yes, indeed. You can find me at SKB Fishing on Facebook. Also, Sheron K. Brown on Facebook. You can also find SKB Fishing on Instagram and TikTok. You know, I want to give a shout out to some new sponsors, some old existing sponsors. Some you see right here, you know, Vicious Fishing. They've been with me for a long time, even longer than Ardent. Ardent, you know, second to none when it comes to me. You know, they care of me from a rod and reels perspective. Candlewood Fishing Camp, and those guys up at Lake Candlewood are doing something really big. They're reaching out to youth throughout the whole country. They take them fishing for a week, man. It's really, really great thing. I'm part of that. I'm hoping to get up there within 2 weeks and spend a week up there, meeting some young minds that really are into fishing. So big shout out to those guys right there. Also, the newest sponsor I got is Mr. B's Jerky. This guy's got the best jerky in the world, man. I'm saying it from an unbiased opinion. I eat a lot of jerky. The stuff's really good. It's got all kinds of flavors. You know, take them out, take a look, and give it a big shout out. Go to the website. You know, you can always use SKB Fishing 10, a Lunkerman 10, to save you a little bit of coin. And any sponsors I got, those are the codes that I use. So check me out. You know, wish me some luck at the Lake Oneida next week. But if not, just hopefully our paths cross, or either in competition or just on a podcast here with 603 guys, or just on a lake for some dock talk. You know what I mean? I'm always about fishing, family, fatherhood, and fishing. That's how I roll. SKB Fishing. Yes, indeed.
Damn right. Well, plus side, I got almost everything except I didn't get your TikTok. Already down in the video description below. So for everybody that's still here, go ahead, open the description on the stream, go down there, and you've got all his social, minus TikTok, right there.
All right.
So
Go find him.
please follow him. We'd greatly appreciate it. And then good luck in Oneida next week,
Thanks
sir.
a lot.
Have fun.
Yeah,
Enjoy
dude.
yourself at the very least, but also go kick everybody's ass.
Yes, indeed. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
All right, so we'll wrap this up. Next week, what are we doing? Okay, this is,
Can't see that far.
next week we have an interview with Brad Leutner, which, Brad, I'm really sorry if I mispronounced your last name. I forgot to ask you how to pronounce it when we were talking the other day, but he's a kind of like another regional pro, much like Sheron, and that's just one of the things that we know we had a lot of people ask us for earlier in the year. One of the things that was most commonly requested, more regionally diverse guests. And I've heard nothing but great things about Brad. He was on Big Bass Streams live stream recently. So they were like, dude, you should have him on. And he reached out. He was interested. So just trying to give back what you guys specifically asked for. And we got another just good regionally diverse guest to have on. Mm-hmm. So there's that. Tomorrow night, Big Bass Dreams live stream at 9 p.m. We're the guests.
Nice.
So if you guys are
Oliver's
interested,
the dude, man. Cool guy.
Yeah,
Yep.
he's a wicked
I-
good dude.
Yep,
Can't
cool
wait.
dude.
we're going up to fish with him at the end of July after the Canwood camp.
Nice. I got thunder, so I'm gonna jump off and get this boat tucked in.
Oh, go take
Yeah,
care of
go
it.
get that.
We're 30 seconds behind you. We're just wrapping it up right now. All right, there's
All right.
everything you guys need to know for next week. And tomorrow night, Big Bass Dreams. Andrew, sign that shit off.
See ya. We will be back. Thanks again, Sheron, for coming on.
Thank you,
Thanks
buddy.
for having me. Take it easy.
Absolutely.
Have a great night, guys.